Well, I mean, let's get back to South Africa and talk to you, Maureen. We were rather alarmed, well, certain people were very alarmed to read in the UK press that Winnie Mandela herself had criticised Nelson Mandela. It turned out later that she said that she hadn't made those statements. What did you think when you heard about those reports that Winnie was accusing Nelson, essentially, of selling out the South African Revolution?
Yeah, well, I don't want to come deep into that, but because you know, at the moment I was talking about the freedom of expression that I had now, because I have to indicate that the situation of the poor people in South Africa, more especially the people who are living in informal settlement. One of the human rights things that the government of South Africa, or maybe ANC, should respect is to access to information first of all. But the information I'm binded to have it. I don't have it right now, and a human dignity, you know. And as the people who came from informal settlement, we feel that after 1994, when we voted for the ANC, which is a party that we believe that is going to, you know, is going to change our life, today they don't even respect our dignity. We are living from informal settlements without electricity, without water, without a proper road, you know, and every time we have to make illegal connections for the electricity. We have to make illegal connections about water, you know, and they even know the major problem that is facing South Africa is an unemployment, you know, but some of the things is privatized, such as water, you know. So I really, you know, I'm becoming very, very worried about the ANC now, because we're just losing hope little by little, you know, because it's an organization that we trusted for. You know.
Right. Thank you very much for painting that picture. We're going to go a little bit more into that, Maureen, so people can get a really clear view of what it's like to be part of a shack dwellers association and what living in a shack really means. But viewer, let us know what you think about life in South Africa. Do you think the ANC has been a disappointment? Email africa@presstv.co.uk, or you can text +44 780000 8086. South Africa still has the highest HIV/AIDS rate on the planet, so life can be very short. Health, education and employment opportunities are high on the list of the challenges facing the ANC, as Maureen has said. But before we take a closer look at the local challenges facing South Africans on a daily basis, here's Kofi Asamoah with a quick report that puts the Sharpeville massacre into historical context.
21st of March 1960 saw unarmed black South Africans protest against segregation laws. Apartheid police forces responded aggressively, shooting 69 people dead and injuring several others. This tragic event was the catalyst that sparked the armed liberation phase of South Africa's resistance to apartheid. In 1994, the apartheid government collapsed after years of armed struggle and international condemnation. The country's first black president, Nelson Mandela, signed a new constitution in Sharpeville in 1996. 50 years since the massacre, many South Africans are remembering those who perished in Sharpeville.
And now we move on to some comments from Andrew Feinstein, who used to be an MP within the ANC, but is still a member of the organisation. Andrew, if I can ask you, because people may not be aware, take us through the events as quickly as you can that led up to you leaving your membership of Parliament.
Yep. I'd been involved with the ANC since the mid-1980s, when it was still a banned organisation. Then found myself many years later as an ANC Member of Parliament. What caused me to leave in 2001 was a massive and very corrupt arms deal, in which the government in late 1998, 1999 decided to spend what will turn out to be anywhere between $6 and $8 billion on arms and weapons that the country didn't need and that we barely use today. And this was at a time when the social needs, the sorts of challenges that Maureen has mentioned, that you have mentioned, were really, really at the forefront of most South Africans' minds. So, for instance, we were prepared to spend billions of dollars on weapons, while at the same time, then President Thabo Mbeki was saying we did not have the money to buy antiretroviral medication for the almost 6 million South Africans who were then living with HIV or AIDS. We did not have the money to provide adequate housing. We did not have the money to provide a basic income grant. So I attempted to investigate this arms deal. I was part of something called the Public Accounts Committee and was stopped by the presidency and by the ANC leadership from this investigation. I was told that this was a matter that would not be investigated publicly in Parliament. What my committee soon established was that over $300 million of bribes had been paid to senior politicians, officials, and to the ANC itself. And rather than accept that I was not allowed to investigate this matter, I decided to resign from Parliament in protest, and I then wrote a book exposing the corruption in the arms deal and what I believe was a betrayal of the original principles and values that had led me to join the ANC.
Okay, very well expressed and crystal clear. I mean, listening to that, Leslie, I mean, how do you feel? Obviously, Andrew is still a member of the ANC and he can express his views, but he's living in London. I wonder how things might be if he were in South Africa. Now, from your perspective, looking at how the ANC is evolving, do you think that they're likely to mirror the situation that is happening in Zimbabwe, where ZANU-PF is viewed as being pretty draconian in its lack of tolerance of opposition?
Well, I mean, we talked earlier on about some of the things that Jacob Zuma could have done and what he promised he would do when he took over from Thabo Mbeki, and one of those was that he wouldn't sort of wouldn't go in with the quiet diplomacy that Thabo Mbeki was criticised in terms of dealing with Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has been, and I think continues to be, the black sheep of the Southern African region. And a lot of us, as Zimbabweans, were looking forward to Jacob Zuma coming in and dealing with the issues that we've had in Zimbabwe, and we talked about some of those. Up to today, almost a year and a bit after the National Unity Government was put in place in Zimbabwe, the freedom of press is not there in Zimbabwe. It's non-existent. Last week we read an article about one of the controversial junior members of the ANC going to Zimbabwe to learn some lessons on land redistribution. What is it there to learn from Zimbabwe? Everything that's happened in Zimbabwe is a disaster, and I'm afraid signs like that are really not encouraging. It's worrying.
And also what might not be encouraging to you, Maureen, is I don't know whether you read recently that the ANC is sort of deflecting criticism about lack of service delivery by blaming the deployees, i.e. the people who should be delivering it, who are paid to do so. They're not taking responsibility. What is your view when you hear that sort of explanation?
Yeah, I know there's a shifting task, which it happens. Because even here, when we take the memorandum, when we march as a people of informal settlements, straight to the President's office in Pretoria, to submit our demands, because we believe maybe sometimes the people on maybe the committee that are working in the provinces, they don't do their job. We feel that we have to take the memorandum straight to the government itself in Pretoria. But up until now, there's no response. No one responding to the problem. There's not even a letter that shows that we've been to Pretoria, to Union Building, to complain about the problem that we are facing. So, but at the end of the day, you will hear that there is the people who don't want to work, there is the people who sidelining the poor. But we don't know who's fooling who here, And we as a people here, we're suffering and we're experiencing a bad thing. Right now, it's going to be cold in Pretoria, in South Africa. It's winter. The people from informal settlement, they don't have electricity. All the time, we have to get sickness like TB because of a cold fire, and all these things, So no one taking the responsibility of the poor, something like that. So I believe that anyone can just shift the responsibility to someone.
Okay.